Okay. It's your turn, Véronique. Are you ready for the second talk of the night?
I'm ready.
Yeah, we have 10 more others just after. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Take this one.
I prefer red.
You prefer red?
But
here it's even very good like that.
Okay. I'll take blue then.
No, because of the white.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome for the second talk of this evening of Type Paris. Again, I want to say that I'm very happy to be here and thank very much Jean-François and all the team of Type Paris for letting me introduce the lectures tonight. I'm especially happy, I must say, to introduce tonight Morag Myerscough. Morag was born in London, where she works and lives. She studied at the Central St. Martin's and at the Royal College of Art in London. She has a strong visual approach in her work and creations. Her topics deals with architecture, urban environment, using lettering, color, patterns, but above all, the thing that she's concerned about is people and how creation can make people happy. She's also concerned about belonging. That's something she's talking all around the world about. That's another way, in fact, to pay attention to people who work, people she works with in her project. And for example, she's very often trying to organize workshops with future users or audience of her installations or creations. There is something I really liked when I read about her work, and that she said, she says that changing people perceptions of spaces into places. And that's probably something she will talk about tonight. She has worked for many different commissioners like hospitals, cultural hubs, town centers, and buildings. She's creating images, but not only, also installations, wall paintings, and also, she's also a textile designer, and she's also designing objects. Of course, her work is based on color, patterns, and as far as she's here tonight, she's also using typography. But she's saying that she doesn't use typography as a constraint rules, but more on an intuitive and creative way. That's what we'll see. I want to mention that she's among the 50 creative leaders selected by Creative Review in 2008. 2018, sorry. And 8, yes, 18, this year. Yeah, sorry. She's also one of the top 10 influential woman designer of the last 20 years. Yes. Please welcome warmly Morag. We're so happy to have you tonight.
So can I start mine now? Is a thing run? Okay, good evening everybody. Thank you for having me, and I feel a little bit embarrassed to be among such an amazing lot of typographers and possibly, well, you'll make your judgment about what I do by the end of it, I hope. But I've been working for a really long time, and I did this piece in 1993 in London. And don't worry, we're not going to go from 1993. We're going to jump. We're not like, you're not going to have everything I've ever done. And at the time, and this is how you can see how things have changed. At the time, this was going to be pulled down because it was too colourful and too bold. And it was in all the papers and everything, but it stayed up. So now I can't do anything. Everything I do, I have to do more colourful and more bold. So I have had a long career, and I've worked for a long time with architects, integrating my, well, am I allowed to say typography? I'm not sure. Anyway, integrating letters and words into buildings. And this was a brilliant piece, actually. It was up for the Sterling Award for Architecture in 2007, where the architect had actually designed the building so that I could put my work into it. So that was quite integrated. And then this one, you may have been to the Barbican. This signage, I worked with Cartilage Levine on this. And this project was a disaster for years and years. And they said to us, do you want to take on the poison chalice? And we did it, and it's still there since 2007. And I think what's interesting about when you do work, you never ever know whether it's going to turn out right or not. But if it's there and it stays there, then that proves that you've actually made it work. So these are just a lead up to things where I started. Basically, I had an issue with working with page sizes A2, A3, A4, all that sort of stuff. And I also had an issue with printing where you might be, due to cost and everything, limited to 2 colour, 4 colour. I usually like working with like 18 colours, and that didn't really go down very well with people. So, and I'd gone to see lots of artworks, like you mentioned Jenny Holtz and Lawrence Weiner and things like that, and I used to go to those places and just think, I want to just do really big things. I just want to get my work out off a piece of paper and into spaces. And this was for London College of Communications, their summer show. And I got some of the students to help me, and we hand painted it outside. And then obviously I like to get things on everything. These are my ridiculous stools. They're just silly words on stools, and I sprayed those. And then this, I would design lots of exhibitions, and when I got this exhibition in 2010, I thought, this is it, I've made it, it's my life. And I was given the permanent exhibition at the Design Museum. But weirdly, nobody actually realizes I designed the whole of the stuff behind. They actually only think I did that, but that's okay. And I worked on that project for 6 years, and it did nearly kill me, and I don't mind if that's recorded. And this was, I had this idea, this is a tri-wall, you know, just an outside advertising wall. I had this idea from really, really early on. I had to go through loads of iterations. I do not like the word iteration. And I came back, I managed to, in the end, convince them to do what I wanted in the first place. So at least I won. And so this is permanent, because a lot of my work is temporary, and this is permanent, and now has become sort of iconic within the building, because the picture that everybody takes is that and that. So I feel quite proud about that. It says designer, user, maker. So at the same time, in 2012, I was offered this project, so it's a bit blurred. I was just given this site. It was a meanwhile space. It was just before the Olympics. And I really didn't know what to do. And then I came to this site that day, and the guy who asked me to do this project basically told me if I didn't do it, I would lose a job. So I went home, and I thought, well, God, I better get, that makes you start thinking quickly, doesn't it? So I thought, oh, God, I better do something. And I've been working with the poet Lem Sizet on the project on a different piece. He was doing a permanent piece of permanent poem. I was doing the type for it. But he used to tweet every day, and I used to tweet colours. And then I thought I'd look at his tweet, and I looked at the tweet that day, and this just said something to me. It was about people, I don't know, it was about people missing people seeing things, eye contact, all sorts of things. And I just took those words and I just went like crazy and made this model. And by the end of the evening, I thought, oh yeah, that's okay, I like that. And I never really made a little building before. I'd never done anything. And I just knew that it was right. And I took it, so next morning I was so excited, and I sent it over to, I didn't even go in myself, I just sent it over to the guy because he was quite grumpy and was a bit fed up with me. And they said, yeah, you can build it. And then I had 3 weeks to build it. I've never built I've never built something like that before. I know how to build. I know how to build exhibitions and things like that. And my dog was quite fed up by the end of it. So I asked a few people. At the time, I had 1 or 2 assistants. I don't have any assistants anymore. I just employ people to come and paint with me. But at that time, I had some assistants. And I said to them, you're going to paint this with me? And they said, yeah, okay. And then we just painted the whole thing. So I think there was me and 3 others. And then this is the final piece. And that's the M going up. And what I think is always so amazing is in the studio, the M looked really, really huge. And you'll probably know that. But the moment you take words outside into the environment, they shrink. Like shrink to little. So you're making something might be as big as this room, and you put it 3 feet up, 3 meters up, 4 meters up, and it's like that big. And so when people come around and they go, why is everything so huge, Morag? It's like, because it's in my house. It's not out in the street. So this was the piece, and this went out to the press, and this just sort of caused a big there were loads of awards and people hadn't seen something like it before, and it just started a whole thing that was very exciting. And I can't just do the building, I had to make all the stools, and there were words from Lemcizé as well. And then I had to make the cushions, so I used to sew, but I hadn't sewn for years, so I got me and the other Lizzie and Catherine, we just sat and made these cushions in the studio. And then this is the final piece. So it's really complex. It was made of shipping containers. We had to carve out this space. Anyway, that's it. So this led on, somebody had seen that. Then I was asked to do a piece in a library, and I worked with young people to get. This was a brand new library, you might know it's by Meccano in Birmingham, and they'd knocked down an old Buddhist library, and they put this new library, and they wanted people to understand what libraries were about in the future, and these were the words by the young people, and then I painted them. And then we put this, the architects weren't that happy, because that was the best view through there, but I never told them to put it there. So you're meant to view through and view up, and my thing was there for the first 3 months. Oh well. And so we made this workshop that then people took over. This was one workshop I did, but I thought when the people took the workshop over, it was so much better than how I made my workshop. My workshop was really controlled, and then they just filled the inside, and it was really exciting. So I like making things that you can just give to people. The reason I'm showing this is because this is how basic my sketches are. I'm not actually terribly good at drawing, as you might see. And I used to really, really be embarrassed about my drawing, because my sister's a fine artist and my mum can draw and everybody can draw. And maybe I can draw if I tried a bit harder. But actually, I've learned to love my drawing, because I think that it expresses. Because when I do it, when I've seen it at the end of it, you might not know what's going to end up. But I know how I can take it further. So then we would make a model. And then this was So there's lots of themes that carry on through the work, and they reappear. And depending on the project, this was an art project up in Wakefield. Depending on the project, different elements come back. So this one was about using swings to move the words. We wrote poems with a young group of people in Wakefield, and then the swings move and the words move, and then we've got wind, and it was people didn't really like the noise. I thought it sounded like a shipyard, but some people didn't like that. But I liked it. But I actually had never thought it would make a lot of noise. So that's the thing you learn. And then you can make more of it the next time. I'm afraid there aren't many pictures with people in it in this context, because I didn't manage to get any. But anyway, they swing and they move. So you can see that I quite like the same font all the way through. And when I was at the Royal College, I decided that I was only ever going to use Franklin Gothic condensed for the rest of my life. And then I thought that that was maybe being a bit limited. And I did use loads of other fonts in between. But actually, I almost have come back to Franklin Gothic. It's of an ilk. I used a condensed Gothic type font majority of the time with shadows and things. And then just this summer, we went to design in Darba. And so you can see these swings they're different swings, but they're built into much more into the structure. And this was the piece in Indaba. You just go up and you walk round. It was a massive piece in the middle of, it's in Cape Town, sorry, in the middle of the square. And it was just for people to play on. And this one was called Embrace the Unknown. So I like calling the projects names. God, I can't actually remember when I started. That was what I was going to do, so I don't go run over. Oh, well, tell me to shut up when I've gone on too long. That's fine. So this is the piece. So it's interactive, and then you can climb on it. And then I also got some young people in Africa to do me some patterns, and then I translate them. So what I think is really important, and I'll talk to you about Sister Carita later, a project, if you know about Sister Carita. Oh, well, no, you're not meant to call her Sister Carita. Carita Kent. Carita Kent, an American nun. She was a nun, artist and educator. I did a project with her later, but I realized that there were so many similarities that I hadn't ever known about. But there is this thing about looking and seeing. It's not anything particularly new or anything, but it is just a thing that you really do need to think about quite a lot. And about really, when you see, you really start understanding things. And when you go to places, and Carita Kent writes that, you know, you should always see things like a child for the first time, and I really believe in that as well. And also, I see, you know, I don't really like the fronts of advertising, whatever they're called, but I like the backs, and I like scaffolding, and this is in Myanmar. So I collect pictures of these things, and I really look into them and think about how they're used, or how they could be used in a different way as well. But these are just all things that make me just so happy. This is in Melbourne. I'd only ever seen it in pictures before, and then I finally went to see it, and it was as good as I thought it was going to be. It made my day. And this is from a long time ago when I went to Delhi, and I think it's 2008, but I always show this picture because I think that is such brilliant branding. It's amazing. Not one of those are the same, are they? But the colour brings it together, and the type brings it together. So it is unified, but it's not in a controlled modernist manner. And these are just, and also, I think sometimes you look and you don't see, but it goes in your head, and then sometimes you can see it comes back to you, and then you think about it and you see it in a different way. And this is just amazing. These are in Myanmar. I went to Myanmar just when they let people come in a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and they are actually kids' chairs they're sitting on. So when those people leave, the chairs are all just like tiny little kiddies' chairs. I just think that's such a sort of surreal thing. And then just these beautiful, beautiful colours get against the earth colours of the architecture. And then if you go in a car in Delhi, that's all you see all the time. And this is one of my older suitcases, but this is my suitcase I took to Croatia when I went and did a talk recently. And so I collect every time I travel, except this time because I only going tomorrow morning, so I've only just got a rucksack. I take a picture of my suitcase, and then I just keep those, and then one day I'll do something with it. So, to continue the looking and the seeing thing, I've always loved things from Mexico, but I'd never been to Mexico. And some British Council people came to my studio, and I said, oh God, I want to go to South America. And fortunately, there were people there in South America. And then about 3 months later, they rang me and they said, Morag, we do this design festival. These people are absolutely amazing. If you're ever in Mexico in September, or late September, is the date on there? Anyway, yeah, October. If you ever go to see this design festival, and they just said, Morag, we want you to make a big installation, and we'll give you a choice of squares. And they gave me two choices. One was a really beautiful green square, and one was this one, you see, which is Zoccola Square, which I didn't know anything about Zoccola Square. And I went, well, I want that one. And they're like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, that one. And then they went, oh, okay, so that's the most famous square in Mexico. And that the flag goes up and down every day. And it's just like everything, it's just full of life. And this road looks right into the square. So I was introduced this book, Ways of Seeing. I don't know what it's on about. I never understood it, but I really like the cover, and I love the title of it. And also, when I was really young, I watched this film. Oh, it's upside down.
Dr. Reeves' residence?
Down.
Oh, good morning, Miss June. Yes,
sorry.
Isn't it? The doctor's up in his thing, you know, his camera obscura. He's got his new lens from a shop this morning, and it makes a lovely picture.
Anyway,
he's taken the big white garden table to project on. He'll be glad you're coming over. He's showing it to the dogs now.
Ah, nice day. Mrs. Bidwell's duck's out too early. She'll lose all the eggs if she's not careful. Ah, the start of the cycling season. There's a hefty young girl. Time Mrs. Tucker went to get our rations.
So this is upside down. I'll move it on. But because when I was a child, I used to watch a lot of television. It was new then, you know, so it was exciting. and you weren't really meant to watch it, so I would watch it as much as I possibly could. So I watched all these films and stuff all the time. So from that, I just thought, why don't we build this camera obscura? Because they asked us to do something that was about being iterative, and I wanted to do something about how designers work or artists work, and I wanted to say it was about having a feeling or going to see things or seeing things in a different way. So we wanted to make a camera obscura like that one I've shown you, but that has a lens and we couldn't get one in Mexico. So we just used a pinhole camera. And these were some of the sketches. So this is what we wanted, but that is what we did. And then the mirror event, look and see. And then this was the final piece. This was nothing, this was fencing going on behind, nothing to do with me. And this was a road there's a road off here that stretches right through the whole of Mexico City, and this was right at the very end of it. So people would come inside, they'd queue, I don't think they knew what they were queuing for, and then they'd go into the camera obscura and they would be explained what it was all about. But I just love things like this, building these things, the juxtapositions against the architecture. And this is the whole, and this is what you saw. And what I thought was so amazing about it is that people didn't realize that through a hole, you got a video that was upside down, it was color, didn't have sound, but, and people learned things, and I thought that was fantastic, and they did go out seeing it in a different way. So, and then this was a piece I just did recently. I don't do many internal pieces, and obviously that didn't go anywhere afterwards because it was 6 meters high. So I was asked to do this piece for the other art fair, and I just built this piece from old bits of my old installations. So I keep the installations and rebuild them, and then I did the type new for it. So this one, this is like, if I die now, which hopefully I don't, but if I do, maybe somebody can try and resuscitate me, but if I do die now, I'm okay because I built this project. I didn't know that until I built it, and now I feel like, because I have been really frustrated for many years about expressing myself and what I wanted to do, and then finally when I built this project, I feel that's okay now, that's okay. So I was asked, it was a love festival on the South Bank in London, and they said originally they were doing the seven types of love from Greek mythology, and I was originally given storge, but that was a love of a mother to a child, but I don't have children, and so it was only one-sided for me, and I was like, I tried it, but it didn't really quite work for me. And we did do a presentation, but they realized, they liked our presentation, but they thought, no, actually what we're going to do is give you the Temple of Agape. So then they gave us a new project, the Temple of Agape, which was much better for me because it was about love for everybody. It wasn't about religion, it was just about love. And they gave me this quote. I could use one word from the quote, or I could use whatever I wanted. So I took the quote, but before I took the quote, in the back of my brain, I remember when I was in Mexico and they were building, no, in Delhi, and they were building these flyovers, and at the time in London they were getting rid of the flyovers, and so the flyover was then put next to this existing old monkey temple, and I just really loved that juxtaposition. And in South Bank it's a concrete building, and I was going to bring this colour into the space. So there are all these embedded thoughts that come out that you don't really know. And I was on a train, and this wasn't out of desperation, I was just on the train and it came to me. and I just drew this, the temple, I just drew it. And I just sat on the train for 3 hours and I drew the temple. And then again, I felt that was right. But I think about things for a really long time. You know, I'm not producing all the time. I have to lie down, I have to watch telly, I have to do things, and then suddenly I'm it's not, a little bit like that. And then I made a paper model of it, and then they just said yes. So again, this was really, really fast. And the South Bank wanted, that was my old dog, Lemmy, the South Bank wanted me to do a call out for volunteers, and I don't, personally, I don't, if people work for me on my projects, and I did it for the South Bank, but I always pay people because I don't think it's right. But this was interesting. We got all these people in, different people every day. I was completely worn out. I had to teach everybody how to make everything. They could come for one day, they got their travel paid for, or they could come for 3 weeks. And they just came and they stayed, and we got new people, and then we'd make a picture every day of what we did. And it was actually really, really lovely, and everybody was part of the making. And then I had these scaffolders that was so great, because, can you see them up there? Those two there, right? So I'm standing down there, and they've got 138 words to put up with me going left a bit, right a bit. And they did it. They were really, really wonderful, and they did it because you can't measure it all. You have to do it all by eye. And then this was... So it was interesting, if you go back and I showed you the Watts Towers, there was a picture of the Watts Towers, I didn't say, but this was the scaffolding once all those panels had been put in, and it was just really beautiful. Then I covered up with this, which I regret in a way, because I planned that, but I like that. So now I try and do that as well as that. And this is the final piece. And it was really very much about, on the outside, it was a peacock, and it was just colourful and telling you, you know, love. And then on the inside, and this was a walkway down, and people would walk through it, too many people. And then, because it was initially not connected to a staircase, but that was something I was asked to do. And in the inside, it was very, very natural, and it was about using the cutouts and the wood to get the light coming in. Okay, so making things together. This is a project from a few years ago, but I really love it, and it was my beginning of really working in hospitals. So I worked again with Français, who's an amazing poet, and he went in and worked with the young patients in the hospital, the Whitechapel Hospital, or the Royal London it's called, it's in Whitechapel. And then we took their words, and then I did workshops. And when you work with children who are really ill, like that little girl was really suffering from cancer, you know, they have a lot of drugs and things, so they don't have a lot of patience. So you have to work really, really carefully with them. But you know, we got great things, and I found the words they loved the best, and some really beautiful poems. So this piece was using, I made, I'm not going to say a font, but I made some letters with the kids' drawings, and then used their poem that was really lovely about what walls are made of, and they're made of laughter, and it was sunshine. It was a really beautiful poem to cover their dining rooms. These are their dining rooms, and then painted the chairs. And then this one was just such a lovely little 7-year-old boy who wrote half in Urdu and half in English. And then this one, the nurses were a bit worried. This was for 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds, and they loved the word dazzle. So that's it. And you know, and it's not. They're all still there, and everybody loves it. So this is a project that didn't happen actually because of funny. I worked on this for nearly 3 years, and I want to show it to you anyway because they made a mistake. Well, I'm going to say that, but no, I got all the funding. I won. It was a competition, a public art competition. I won the funding, but in the end, there was one woman who didn't like pink, and she stopped it. So I did loads and loads of workshops with people with dementia and young kids and cultural groups, and these amazing ladies from, I think, Cyprus or Greece, one of the, and they gave me lovely food that they'd made, and you know, it was really lovely. And this guy's piece of work, he was in the daycare center. I used that as the main motif. So I take their drawings, we use stickers and things, and then I make it into a pattern. But then I made these bigger pieces that took elements of everybody else's patterns to make a piece together. So the whole thing is that I come from this area, and it's a very migratory area, and I worked with like 3 poets, and we didn't get any words. And then in the end, I just felt the word that meant the most to everybody who lives there is that we're together. So now, there's a lot of together things at the moment. I think this was 2 years ago, but started like 3 or 4 years ago. And then this was the piece. And we even went as far as sample. I do have this in my studio, because it was really, really complex. I'm not going to bore you with it because I've got too much to talk about. How much time have I got? 5 minutes? Oh my God. Okay. Okay, well, we'll rush through that. This is my only permanent piece of work, which I think permanent is hard, but when you've done enough temporary, you can do permanent. So I was asked to do this bridge in next to Battersea Power Station. It's the opening of the power station, and there was a festival. This festival, I wish I had been. I wasn't actually alive to see this, but I wish I had been able to see this in its heyday. And then I made this piece, and again, this is me. How I draw up the board, so that's just, and then this is a big type in the studio. So I think I've been talking too much, so I'm going to whiz to a bit that I want to talk about. And that's the piece, and that's all hand-painted in our studio, and you can see it from, so you can see about using the contrast in the surrounding area. You can just look at the pictures on this one. So this is a space, this is in Romania last year. This is, and then that's just with black lights because I use neon. And then this piece is in Las Vegas. Oh my God. 3 weeks in Las Vegas was horrible. was truly horrible. So I had made this rug before, you can't quite see it, surrender to its warm embrace, and it was a phrase taken off a Slumberland box. And then I was asked to do this piece on the front of a motel in Las Vegas. So this was the motel. But they seemed to think that I was going to put the scaffolding up as well as paint it all. I was like, I'm too old, I can't do that. So, so they gave us this space behind, and then we had to build this sort of ad hoc studio, and then we painted the whole thing. And they said they'd give me volunteers, but they didn't, because nobody in Las Vegas wants to paint outside. They want to stuff pieces of paper in envelopes instead. So majority, I did finally get 2 people who helped me, but I had to paint nearly the whole thing myself, and I nearly died. I had to lie down for 3 months, because that's me painting, because I nearly died. It was even though in the shade, it was really, really hot. And then they kept on telling me, well, you can work all night, Morag, if you want. It's like, no, I've got to sleep. Let me sleep. And then if you're ever there, you have to go to the neon graveyard. It is just the most amazing, amazing views. So this is the scaffolding which I finally didn't have to put up. And then I had my own vehicle, my own cherry picker, but I said I wouldn't drive it, so I got them to get me a driver because I was being the queen. And then we had to paint this wall super fast as well. And this was the piece. And then at night, so you might know I can't remember his first name, but his work, it was on the other side, and this is my work. And in downtown Las Vegas, this work just grows all the time. This is, right, I'm going to whiz through this. Have I got 5 minutes? Oh, yes. Whiz through this. We make belonging. So I'm London born, London bred, and this is my clown grandfather, who was English but went to the circus and was in Paris, in the permanent circus in Paris. And this is my great grandmother, who was German and I think a bit French as well, and she was a high diver, and they couldn't find anything for her to do. So that's why she became a high diver. And I didn't really realize, I thought she went on a wire, but a high diver goes off here into a pond, into like a really small, that's not her, but I'd watched this film and I was like going, oh my God, that's what my grandmother did. It's like totally weird. Wrong, they die. But she did live, and they moved to Holloway, to a very working class area. And this was my French grandfather on the left, and his son, and he was a salon painter called Marx who lived in Paris. But look what happened to the high diver. I'm a bit nervous that I might I might grow into her. That's quite scary. And is that a cat or a dog? I don't know what that is. And this is my very elegant French grandmother, who in the house in Holloway changed her house into a French salon because she wanted to escape from the horrible place that she was living in, and got all her family in France to make her this thing. And she lived this very elegant life and helped make hats for Hartnell. And that's my dad, and that's my dad. And sadly, I have to admit, I cannot speak a word of French, even though they spoke French all the time, because my dad was quite hard on us about how we pronounce things. And I don't play an instrument either. Okay, so this is me at the Royal College. And I liked the obvious. And the one at the end is Hockney Paints the Stage, which sort of blew my mind. And this was my work at the Royal College. I did opera sets. So that's why I've sort of gone full circle. We'll skip Luke. We'll skip Luke, because that's too long. And this is where I live now. And so this is what it's about. So now I live in this place. I came from a home that was crazy. I didn't really fit in around about accepting my home. I moved home, and then it took me 20 years to be able to buy this house. Do I have to stop? Oh, 2 minutes. I've got 2 minutes. Okay, sorry, everybody. I thought I planned this well. So what is so amazing about this house is I live and work in the house. So I can do whatever I like, and then sometimes I have people helping me. And then this year, I managed to do what I've another one that I wanted to do. So I love bandstands, and I love this Top Hat song. So we're at Top Hat when they're in the bandstand.
The thunder and lightning seem to be
had. Watch that. But look at the amazing, and how they're free places, and you can just gravitate round them, and you don't have to pay to see anything. And so, okay, so this is, okay, I totally misjudged it. I did all my counting and I got all my things wrong. This is Carita Kent. Anyway, go and have a look at her work because she's amazing. And I did a project, Ditchling, a museum, we're getting her work, and they asked me, is there anything, and they said to me, would you like to do something? And I said, well, I've always wanted to do my bandstand. And so now we're married together. So we did. So in the museum, there's what belonging means to me and what belonging means to Luke, but we haven't talked about Luke, but that's fine. And then I did a whole load of workshops. Everybody must read this book by Carita Kent, Learning by Heart. Is absolutely genius. It really makes you think. So loads of workshops with all age groups of communities, 6 groups, for what they thought belonging was about. And then I worked up all their words, worked with Brighton University to help me paint the placards. I painted the rest of it myself. That's my new puppy, Elvis. And then this is a piece. So the bandstand has all the people's messages. The whole thing about the bandstand, it's travelling all summer in East Sussex, and each time, in Sussex, each time they get it, their words, each time the community groups get it, their words come to the front. And this was in a really, in an estate, and it's already, everybody wants it back each year. It brought the community together. Yeah, and I'm so happy that it happened. So, thank you.
Only 14 years after its birth, the iconic Bauhaus School of Design was shut down by the Nazi regime. Many treasures and unfinished masterpieces were left behind, lost to the world. Founded on the central idea of training a new generation of artists to create a better world, Bauhaus laid the foundation for modern design as we know it and changed creativity forever. But in 1930s Germany, the progressive ideas of the Bauhaus were considered threatening, and the school's closure became inevitable. But sometimes, what's been lost to history can be brought back. The influence of Bauhaus lives on, and now you can design with a piece of living history.